Welcome to the Nick and Jimmy Show. I'm Jimmy, this is Nick, and on today's episode, we have Nicolas Macrozonaris. Nick, welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
I like the new setup, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate that.
It's my pleasure, guys.
Great catching up. We love your story and everything, but talk to us. Many people watching this video right now want to know your story. Who are you and what do you do?
Okay, in a nutshell, I'm a former two-time Olympic athlete. I participated in 2 Olympic Games in 2000, Sydney, Australia, and 2004, Athens, Greece. I won 5 national titles. After my career, I studied a little bit sports therapy, and I'm a member of the Canadian Association of Therapists of Complementary Medicine. Mm-hmm. And I'm the founder and operator of a very successful track and field club. And I'm very proud of that.
Excellent. What's the club's name?
Final Push. Final Push. So we, in 4 years, I was able to detect, identify, train 2 athletes who today, 2 athletes, well, many athletes, but these particular 2 athletes are national champions. So they're the fastest in the country. And it's very difficult to develop these kind of athletes in the national level.
Awesome. And going back to the Olympics in Athens or in Sydney, I'm not sure which one. You were this close of beating the world record, or you did?
So how it went? It started in '96 when I saw Donovan Bailey win the gold medal for Canada at the Atlanta Olympics, and believe it or not, at 15 years old, I saw that race, and when he was busy doing his victory lap, I was on the streets, painting the streets with a spray paint and starting running. And that was the beginning of track and field at 15 years old. And it was a unique part of time because the internet didn't really exist. Mm. So you're really like a kid that's allowed to dream. And the next, you know, I was training very, very hard. Like running on the streets, having neighbors calling police for suspicious activity. You could only imagine a kid running down in the street in the middle of the night. It could get a little bit weird, right? But that was the journey that I had for the next 4 years. I was training and chasing a dream. 4 years later, I went to run in Victoria in 2000, and it was the last day to qualify for the Olympics. And I was not anticipating to get the standard because it was very difficult to get the standard for the Olympic Games. I was 19 years old. I ran the semifinals. I finished first. The time is legal, 10:19. The time the Olympic qualifying time was 10:21. So I accidentally qualified for the Olympics when I was 19.
Accidentally.
Accidentally. So that was the beginning of a very, very long journey. But once you get to that level, then it gets even more difficult because you want to stay there and you want to compete with the best in the world. And, you know, going through that process, that in around 2000, that's when my parents also kind of like separated. So it was a lot of little challenges attached to the journey, but my parents did very, very well to support their kid. And you know what I mean? I have nothing but great things to say about my parents. And in 2001 is where I moved out with my brother. And these are the things that I like to share stories, because I feel like there's a lot of athletes that I train and they all have to understand that nothing is easy. And that's why I feel comfortable to kind of like share these stories, because they only see the Reebok commercials, the Coca-Cola commercials, and they think it's easy. Mm. But sometimes you have to kind of align them and say, guys, it's not easy. You know, there's a lot of like challenges that anybody has to go through, and athletes and anything that you do in life. So to go back to what I was saying, in 2001, although I was an Olympic athlete, I had to kind of stay there, and I had to go even further and higher to the ladder of international sprinting. So after the Olympic Games, I moved out with my brother, and we were living in a small 3.5. We shared practically the same bed on Notre Dame. From 2001 to 2002, I feel it was just like a roller coaster ride of difficulties. But if you would ask me, would I redo it all over again? Absolutely, I would. For example, a university in Quebec asked me to go with them and their 5 athletes to go in France and to compete with them. And they couldn't get into that international event. The reason they got accepted is because it was a package deal. They said, we're gonna bring prestigious into your event, we're gonna bring an Olympic athlete, but you have to also accept 5 of our students. And going over there, guys, the deal was they're gonna pay my hotel. They were gonna pay my room on board, and they were also going to pay my expenses. And it was important for a guy who,
getting started.
You can't just, so I accepted. It was a good opportunity for me because it was like some high caliber competitions I was going to participate in. And then finally, no joke, as soon as the plane takes off, I had $234 in my account, and you're going to freaking Europe. And the flight doesn't even reach its cruising altitude. Guy comes up to me and says, hold on to all your receipts, and according to our budget, we'll reimburse you. That was his answer. And I'm like, not even like, I'm just right over freaking at that point, like, still in Canada. I made a decision to come back. And it's frightening if you think about it, because you don't know what's going on, right? And we landed over there, and to make a long story short, we went to the hotel. The guy goes pay, and I said to him, you mind if we take care of this tomorrow morning? Because I had a long day. No problem. 2 o'clock, I put the alarm. I jump out of the window with my luggage. Did you ever throw a luggage out of the window? It sounds like you're throwing a dead body. The sound that it made. And I took the train and went back home, and the flight that they booked me was an unexchangeable ticket. I had to buy another ticket. The ticket was $600 something dollars. I ended up getting Air Transat. Air Transat brought me home for $150.
Oh my God.
And I wrote a note back to Montreal, so they can understand. Because I didn't have the means to stay there for a week or 10 days. I didn't have the means. I had a student credit card of $500. So I couldn't really hang out there, you know what I mean? For a long period of time, considering that they're gonna reimburse me later, you know what I mean? So these are the struggles that I had in 2000. Once I was in Belgium, it was an international event, entry level. I got there, the hotel decides to take everybody by surprise by raising their prices by 50%. And I simply didn't have the money. I never told this story. I didn't have the money. So you know what I did? I said, I'm gonna just go sleep on the fields and wake up the next morning and just run my competition and take off the next day, take the train and go back to wherever I was going. And I put my luggage down like I'm, camping. And across the street, there's a church. It looked like a church. It was a monastery. I looked at it, and it was kind of windy and stuff. I figured, you know what, I might as well go and see. I walked in there, fellas. I'm from Canada, and I have no place to stay. Is there a place for me to stay here? And they're like, they welcomed me in, brought me some carrot soup, and the next day I went to compete, and I won the race. But these are the challenges that in the very, very early beginnings, even as an Olympic athlete, was very, very challenging and very difficult.
And you said that your parents separated. Do you find that had an impact in your life? Was it a challenge for you?
It was an interesting part of my life because you're not getting influenced by anything around you because you're really laser focused on what you want to achieve, right? Making my parents proud on a very unfortunate situation is where my ambitions were, right? And I think I did that, you know. I remember I told this story to my dad when the separation happened. I tell my dad, there's a race in Sherbrooke, I want to go race. And he goes to me, no problem, I'll bring you. But in his mind, he thought I was depressed, that I wanted just to run with other kids, just to forget everything. And he tells me this story today. He goes, when I saw you run, my problem was not anymore the separation with with your mom. The problem was, what do I do with a kid that's very talented now? And it's another problem they have to handle. And I can understand that, right? You have your problems, but then you also have your son who's very talented. And he's like, well, what do I do about this? What do I do about this? So it was, for me, having my parents separated, I can't say if it helped me or it was an advantage, but I just, you try to bring some joy into their life through what you're doing, right?
For them to be proud of you.
Right.
Good. And if we could go back, when you qualified for the Olympics,
right? How
did you feel? Like, what was your feeling? Here's another question, actually. Before qualifying, did you have the mindset that I already qualified, it's already done?
Okay.
Or you took it one step at a time?
So the first time I qualified, I had no clue that I was capable of qualifying. It's extremely difficult to qualify for the Olympic Games. There's only like a handful of people in the world that get to go. So I was going over there, and again, I had no clue that I was going to qualify. I was just going there to compete. And I qualified for the first time at 19. And it was just like, you don't realize until they announce your name as an official member of the team. And then the journey begins, and it's a really, really amazing journey. You fly out with the national team, and you're competing with a guy side by side with a guy who inspired you 4 years prior.
Wow.
At the watching as you're a little kid, and next thing you know, you're in the same team with him. So it was. I wasn't expecting it. I knew I was going to run fast. I didn't know I was going to run fast enough to get the standard. And when they announced. There was also at the time talks that saying, Nick is too young, we can't bring a kid with not a lot of experience into the national team. And that kind of like took away a little bit of my excitement. But I only found out officially when they announced the team downtown at the Root store. And I was there and I was super excited.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Actually went to the Olympics. You said you were 19 years old. At that time, most kids at 19, they think about partying, having a social life.
Right.
In your case, I'm guessing you had to be very disciplined, so you really weren't. How was it at that time, being 19?
So for me, it's an interesting question, because you're so preoccupied on what you want to achieve that it was very, very difficult to get influence from the outside. And when you're so interested in something, you typically point direction of interest on things that are going to interest you and make you a better at your craft. So my friends were really selected to those who could actually make me a better athlete. So it was, I was really like preoccupied. The partying didn't really affect me at all, actually. It was not a struggle. I was not just simply not interested. My social life was put on hold. And I think today it's more difficult for kids to sustain success, to get success, because there's so much distractions. And through smartphones, through all kinds of stuff. And it's easy to get distracted by a guy who doesn't know what he's talking about, right? And for me, it was really not the case, because I was really like engulfed in one, to the pursuit of success in track and field. And it was not a struggle at all.
So growing up, you mentioned you had a mentor in your field. Talk to us about your mentor or mentors.
I had mentors. I had a guy, Bruny Surin, who is an incredible mentor. He's also a very close friend. And he has helped me a lot in different ways, in a psyche. Sometimes, you meet somebody you're around and you just walk away feeling better and more confident. And that's the effects that Bruny gives, right? So it's nice to have a friend like that. And he kind of guided me and made me avoid a lot of mistakes that he did. And I think that's it's so valuable because a lot of times you spend a lot of time doing mistakes that are avoidable. And he was that kind of guy who has helped me a lot. I had a coach, Daniel Saint-Hilaire, who was also very close to me. He walked a mile long on broken glass to see his athletes succeed, in a sense, right? He did everything for me to be able to be successful. And that's an important role for a coach. So I have like a lot of people to thank that helped me grow as a better athlete throughout my career as a track athlete.
Did you ever want to quit?
It's interesting. Yes. The answer to that question is you think about quitting, but something happens the next day when you wake up and you're ready to go through the whole thing all over again. And I think it's when you're very passionate about something that when it gets difficult, it's very difficult. You think about quitting, but the next day something happens, man. You're just ready to go through it again. And just keeps you through the challenges. Well,
life happens, and from what you're saying, you have to be very passionate in order to be able to go through all these milestones and the hurdles, because it's hard. I mean, anything you do in life, the hustle is real, right? So, yeah.
And you grow from that.
100%.
You grow 100% from that. I just feel that if there's anything I could redo all over, I wouldn't change anything, because I feel track and field helps you grow as a person. And it's a discipline, right? You don't play track and field, you run. And one of my we talked about the challenges, and I think it's important to talk about the challenges. And there's a lot of challenges, but it's very rare that an athlete could also succeed after the challenges. And for me, I was extremely fortunate, very, very fortunate. You mentioned earlier about a record. What happened was I got invited in 2003 into a competition. And the world record holder was in that race, Tim Montgomery. He broke the world record. And there was 55,000 people in that stadium, and everybody came tuned in to watch this guy potentially maybe break the world record again. Because he just broke the world record. And I got invited into that race, and I don't know how I got invited into that race. I was there, I was lane 1. And again, you're gonna run fast, but I end up winning. And that's how my life completely changed, like night and day. I got Reebok knocking on my door, Coca-Cola commercials, and the list goes on and on and on. And had I not ran 10:03 today, it would have been a very, very different story.
Wow.
Very different story.
And what have you achieved? Like, what do you have now? Gold medals, you were saying?
I ran 5 national titles in track and field, and I've competed internationally in many different events: Olympics, World Championships, Commonwealth Games, Francophone Games, Pan Am Games, and all these kind of things, World Championships. But I was never on the top 3. I was never on the podium. I was never on the podium. But you know what I mean? You're proud with, I did it nobly. I never cheated. And, my coach said, don't leave any regrets on the track. So today I'm a very happy guy. I did everything I can.
But you're very successful too with Final Push. So with what you learned in the past, you got all the life, it was a life experience, and you brought it all together for doing what you're doing. I'm a strong believer, things happen for a reason.
Right. Final Push Track Club was founded 4 years ago, and we've developed a lot of athletes that ended up on the provincial podium and also national podium, or 2 national champions. And I'm very proud of that, because it's very difficult to go and try to solicitate, find kids, train them, and bring them to that level. So the track club is very successful. We have a lot of members, and I'm very satisfied with the growth. And I want to continue developing these athletes. And we also work with athletes outside the world of track and field, from baseball players, NHL players, and all different sports, to improve their speed, which is a market that didn't really exist, right? You're asking, you're telling you how many you run faster and more efficient, and you'll be faster. So a lot of soccer players sign up to that.
How about in the next 5-10 years? What's your vision? Where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years?
It's interesting. Nobody knows this. I developed, well, few people know this. I've developed 2 products that I always felt was important, but didn't exist. And I'm in the process of prototypes, stitching, and developing these things. I think I'm not doing that for financial gain. I just feel it's a product that doesn't exist, and it should exist, especially for the world of athletics. And over time, you kind of think of these ideas, and it takes a spark to get up and call somewhere in Chabanel to find out who can manufacture and make the prototypes and all that stuff. So I'm in that process right now. So I'm developing 2 products.
When it launches, let us know.
For sure. I'll let you guys know.
We could launch it on the Nick and Jimmy show.
Yeah.
I could. Yeah, that would be a great idea, actually. You know what I mean? It's a really unique product. But it's interesting that you say that. We're talking about... we don't know, me personally, I'm not like, it's very difficult to surround yourself, to guide you in the world of business, to do the right decisions and avoid all these headaches. So I'm in that process too. So it's a unique learning curve, and it's exciting too in the same time, right? So it's something I'm not too familiar with, but it's going to be a fun journey nonetheless. And
for a kid, let's say, or somebody growing up right now, and their dream is to be an Olympic runner, right, or be in that field, what would be some of the advice that you would give them?
So I have the best advice that I have is there's a lot of distractions, and it's extremely difficult to keep a kid focused on reaching greatness or reaching their potential if there's so much distractions. And I don't know the answer to that, but I do know it's a problem. And the best advice that I could give is that to be a master of your craft, you can't be in 5 different directions. You have to focus on something and become really good at it. And otherwise, you'll be good at everything, a master of nothing, right?
That's very true.
So for me, that's the advice I would say. There's kids that want to go get a scholarship in the States that's worth $200,000. You can't do that when your friend's telling you to go out, and the other friend's telling you to try surfing, and the other guy's telling you to do this and go vacations and all that stuff. There's no way to realistically get to a level that's considered very high. Very difficult.
So get good at what you do and stay laser focused.
Yeah, and I think it's
and being surrounded with the right people, right?
Of course,
right.
Good influences.
Typically, for me, my personal experience, I was not surrounded by people that were not related to track. And if you're not related to track, then I would have no interest sitting and talking to that person, right? That's why a lot of my close friends for a very long time were kind of like separated. I haven't had a conversation with my close friends when I was actually on my top of the game. When I was on top of the game and I beat the world record holder, I was on top of the game, and I didn't share that information with much people. Like, I hadn't experienced that information with a lot of people, because I was only focused on being around people that are going to influence me in a positive way. And it was not it was subconscious. It's not because I was looking for people. It just happened.
You're attracted to it.
I'm just interested in that. And if you're talking to me about, at the time, what was it, the Dome or something like that? No.
Yeah.
Dome days.
The Dome.
I go, what is the place? You know what I mean? So I was really involved. Listen, I didn't go out the first time I went out on a club, I was 21 years old. 21 years old. The day that I qualified for the Olympics in 2000, my coach, because we got to go out and celebrate. I was 19. I stayed home, I stayed at the dorms, and I just kind of listened to my music, and I was just kind of like super happy in my own world. It's just crazy, that's how it was, right? And it's good because by going out, you'll make new friends and you make new things, and then you kind of like steer the wrong direction. And it happened to me. I'm not saying it didn't happen to me. At one point in time, I did get steered the wrong direction. And around 27 years old is where things were going downhill for me. And you kind of say today you're older, wiser, to try to understand why. It's because you were not focused anymore. You were going the wrong direction. You were getting influenced by what this person says, what's going on. And then all of a sudden, you're all over the place. And then the results drop, and then, you kind of say, it's time to move on to different things, right?
Talk to us about Final Push. Like if someone wants to get involved with that, or if they want to get a hold of you, to get to train with you, how does that work?
Okay, so Final Push is a track club, and we specialize in different programs. We have a program for recreational and competitive packages where people just want to run and compete. We have a program that's a grassroots program, which is 8 to 12, where we have kids learn the fundamentals of athletics, which is a very, very important element for growth in any other sports that they do. And then we also have a program which is called Speed Athletes, which is we condition athletes to become faster and more explosive. And it's a very aggressive program. And that's a program that works for a lot of athletes from across the board. We have rugby players, we have tennis players, football players, you name it. And they're there just specifically to be more athletic, but with the focus of improving their overall speed. And we do a very good job in that. It's very successful.
Awesome.
And do people get a discount for the Nick and Jim show? If they want to show you?
There should be, I guess.
Maybe on season 3.
It's season 3.
Perfect. People watching this video right now want to follow you on social media. How can they follow you? Where can they find you?
They can follow me on Facebook. My name is Nick Macrozonaris. And they can also follow my page, Final Push Athletics.
Cool. Our producer had a question. Earlier you mentioned Coca-Cola, Reebok contacted you. Had a few sponsors. How was it? Was it fortune and fame? Because other people think that's smoke and mirrors.
So when I ran one race in 2003, I beat the world record holder, and literally my life changed completely. And it is intense. It's very, very intense. I was ranked #1 in the world for 5 consecutive weeks. And for that 5 weeks, you live a very, very interesting lifestyle. And you go from having practically nothing, living in a 3.5, to all of a sudden having a 4-year shoe deal, having a Coca-Cola commercial. Life changes completely. And it could affect you in a negative way, and it probably did, because all of a sudden now you have more resources to screw up. You know what I'm saying? So when you're really like, you throw the first pitch in a baseball game. I got stories. I'm going to share a story actually. You're getting more resources, you're getting more money, and it's a very unique situation. It's very gratifying. It makes you feel very, very good because you really, really start from the bottom of the barrel. And it affects you in a positive way, but also it could affect you in a negative way in terms of performances. But it was something that if I haven't ran one race in my life, it would have been completely different, my lifestyle today. So it was a unique situation. I'll tell you a funny story. Reebok took me out to a beautiful restaurant in Paris. And I like sharing this story because it's really funny, all right? I'm in Paris and I finished the World Championships in 2003 and I was on top of the world. And this guy approaches me after dinner, and he approaches me, and my coach always told me, have a two-way conversation. No, it's not a one-way conversation. People are going to solicitate you, just talk to them. So I'm a bit tipsy, I'm feeling good, I'm very, very happy, life is good. So I'm hugging this guy, right? I'm just kind of like talking to him, I'm asking him, what sport do you do? He goes to me, I did bobsled. And I said to him, you crazy bastard. I go, my friend did bobsled, he broke his collarbone. So we're having this conversation like this for about 10 minutes, and then he takes off with his entourage. And I had Bruny Surin come up to me, and he comes up to me, goes to me, dude, what are you doing? You spoke to this guy like he's your buddy from Chamonix. And I'm like, who's this guy? And he goes, the Prince of Monaco, Prince Albert.
What?
And I go, what? I'm hugging this guy, I'm calling him names and stuff like that. And just to tell you that when I tell you my life was put on hold, my social life, I didn't even know who this person was. I had no clue. I was really like involved. And when you reach that kind of success, you experience so many weird things that you're just not prepared for, right?
Yeah.
Because remember this, and I'm not ashamed to say it, 6 months prior to that meeting with the Prince, I was changing petrol points for egg sandwiches at Petro-Canada. That's the reality of what one race could do in track and field. It can completely change your life, right? So it was a funny situation. And you know, part two to the story? Part two to the story is I tweet him, Prince of Albert. I sent him a tweet. I don't use Twitter, but I sent him a tweet. And I said to him, hey man, do you remember me? I asked you what you do for a living. I have no clue who you were. He retweeted that message. So obviously he remembers me because people were probably saying, look at this freaking guy talking to this guy like he's like, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, for sure he remembers that conversation because I treated him like a human being, right?
That's awesome.
Exactly. You should keep in touch with him.
Well, it's hard to keep in touch with the Prince.
You should invite him to the Lincoln Jimmy Show.
Yeah, I should invite him. But the thing is, when you reach a high level, you experience things that are just completely insane.
The lavish lifestyle.
It's just insane, dude. I went to Boston International headquarters of Reebok. They flew me in for one day, and they had their designers and their engineers, and I created my own shoe. And I tell them I want this color. But at that point in time, you're already self-centered to begin with because you're running track and field. But now you're really feeling like, and I want my shoe to be like this, da, da, da. And in 2003, Reebok rented the floor of the Eiffel Tower. It's my birthday, and they present my shoe.
Wow.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh my God.
And I'm like,
what?
And I remember calling my mom, like, Ma, this is what happened, right? Da, 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 da. And you're living like a crazy lifestyle, and it's just because of one race. And mind you, if I ran 10:03, Tim Montgomery, the world record holder, ran 10:04. Had it been reversed, nothing would have mattered.
Do you still get like royalties from that? And
no, you don't. But you get an interesting thing is you have a lot of doors opening for you for a very long time. It's like riding the wave, and it's a unique situation that to have, and but it's just one race that typically changes the life of an athlete. And for me, I was fortunate that it happened.
All the athletes right now that are running, they keep on pushing, and so on, they're just one race away.
It's one race away. Yeah. And I'll tell you, for me, it's just like the stars aligned. Because we have to remember this. In 2003, a white dude beating the world record holder. He's from Canada, who's Canadian, and the Olympics next year are in Greece. So it was just like a story to tell, right?
Yeah.
And I had, it's interesting. My parents didn't have the means to come and see me at the Olympics in 2000. So Athens, I get a call from my agent, and he's like, Bank of Cyprus wants to sponsor you. And it's like, what? Bank of Cyprus? And they're going to fly your mother, your father, and your brother, and they're going to take care of all your expenses at the Olympics in Athens. And this is just awesome, man. You're at the Olympics. You're a Greek kid at the Olympics. Your parents are there in the stadium.
Beautiful. Getting goosebumps.
Yeah, man. It's just crazy, dude. And it's interesting that I say that, right? Because I keep bugging my dad. I said, Dad, after that race, you never came and see me race ever again, man. He goes to me, after I see you run in Athens in my country, well, I'm going to go to McGill or Sherbrooke or something to see you run, right? So that was the last time pretty much my dad kind of like followed my race. Because he reached the highest level, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of changes when you reach the highest level. Reebok commercials and commercials for Coca-Cola, and you're getting money, and And but I could see how easily an athlete could get lose focus. Lose focus, because when you have nothing and you're chasing for something, it's easier than when you have a lot and you're chasing for more.
Exactly.
Right? So
keep that in mind, yeah. And everybody watching this video should keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah, well, you kind of see it it's like a trend in NBA and NFL. You have players that make fortunes of money. I didn't make that kind of money, but I made a little bit of money, right? But you have fortunes of money, and then these guys are like broke. Like broke.
That's why it's important to have growth. It's important to have personal development. You know, read positive books. Surround yourself with the right people that are good influences.
Right.
To be able to stay away from these situations.
Nick, it's interesting you say that, because I'll tell you, you had Sebastian Sperano as a guest.
Yes.
And I think, I never met him, but I follow him. And I think his message and the way he delivers his messages is phenomenal.
You hear that, Sebastian? That's for you, man.
Yes, yes. And what I think is interesting to point out is, as a track athlete, as a track coach, if you ask me to do the running drills, I won't be able to execute it perfectly. The angles might be off. Yeah, you need somebody to kind of guide you. And it's okay. It's okay to have somebody guiding you and telling you, hey, you know what I mean, correct. Even though you know your stuff, you need, and I think what Sebastian Sperano is doing is just kind of, I'm in the same wavelength. I understand what he's saying, but it's nice to hear it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And kind of like guide
Refresher.
you. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? I think his messaging and the way he delivers it is fantastic.
Awesome. Nick, thank you very much for being on the show. Great story. We had a lot of fun. Everyone watching, thank you very much for watching another episode of the Nick and Jimmy Show. If you love these type of stories, follow the Nick and Jimmy Show, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Watch us.